Sarah Boone was off the rails at her sentencing, okay? She was reading everybody up and down. It didn't matter who it was. And we're going to go in depth on some of those horrid things that came out of her mouth in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Psh, sofa's there. Psh, 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 I'm right here. Psh, 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 psh. Boys are still sleeping. Okay, they're right here next to me. All right. And my name's Paul. If you're new to the channel, if you're not new to the channel, my name is still Paul. Now, today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going a little bit more in depth into the Sarah Boone sentencing. So we watched it together on the live stream channel, on the podcast channel, whatever you want to call it. Links are down below. We also did a little overview video of it. This is going to go and focus more on some of the most like my top moments of it or whatever. You know what, this might be what we even named the video, you know, my top off the hinge moments of Sarah's sentencing, because the whole thing was, right? The way we're going to do this is we're going to put up some clips that I went through and picked out that were like the most what to me. A lot of it is going to focus in on that speech that she gave about George, okay? So just brace yourself for that. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, Sarah Boone was convicted of taking the life of her boyfriend, George Torres, by putting him in a suitcase, zipping it up, and leaving him there overnight while he begged for his life. She would go upstairs and pass out drunk. She would have recorded herself berating him and laughing at him while he asked to get let out. The next morning, she wakes up. He is suffocated in the suitcase. She drugged the court case out for close to 5 years, and she was convicted of the crime in October and December, a couple of days ago of 2024. She was sentenced to life for this. Sarah would speak out at the trial, at the sentencing, I'm sorry. She would talk at the trial as well, but at the sentencing, and she was horrible what came out of her mouth. Now, another few of the things that really stuck out to me were some of the people who spoke out for Sarah. I want to listen to a clip of a woman who called in from Minnesota first. She has befriended Sarah. She's like a pen pal. Sarah has offered to do things for her, you know, health-wise and whatnot. We'll hear it in a second, but let's just let the clip roll and then we'll talk about it.
In the case of my friend Sarah, the words narcissist, Karen, villain, many other things, they roll off the tongue with little regard to the humanity that is dismissed so flippantly.
Guilty. Sorry, I am, right? Now, if you are new here, just know I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a cop, anything like that, okay? So this is just opinions based on public information. They are non-credentialed. Only credentials we got is a sofa and some sass, okay? That's all we're doing up in here. This is not meant to be official diagnosis, all right? But this caller, this friend, this pen pal wants to make sure, hey, you know what? She's not any of these things. I've had a different experience, and I'm glad that she has had a different experience with Sarah for her. Let's continue to hear about the experience, though.
Sarah Boone is a kind, honest, and good person. The Sarah Boone I know is one who loves animals, especially the kind who are damaged and defenseless. How many of us would take in and pour love for a hearing impaired and a sight impaired pair of dogs?
I mean, there is that. I wasn't sure when I was watching this live. I was like, oh my God, is she going to compare George to a dog? Like, I literally was not sure where that was going, right? But, you know, I get that. Obviously, if you follow me, you know I'm a dog person. I've got 2 little babies sleeping next to me. So there's that. But let's keep going.
Through it all, I have many friends and family I love and cherish. Sarah has distinguished herself differently in this way. In the course of getting to know her, I started sharing the progressing state of my health. It was like lightning had struck her. The moment Sarah had learned the depth of my struggles health-wise, she straight up offered strenuously to donate a kidney to me. I got to tell you this. I hope she's not mad for me showing this, but she had no hesitation, no concern over personal risk or personal gain. I want to convey to this, out and around the world, that is merely offering is a good and heroic act. I've had many friends. I've not had one outside of my brother who has offered me a kidney.
But would the kidney be any good is the question. And again, she offered it. She said that's the heroic act. There is that. I wonder how this person's friends felt hearing that, of being compared to that. You know, there's that. But again, I'm not in the situation. It would probably mean a lot to me if somebody offered to give me one of their organs, right? So this is her experience with Sarah, and she was willing to call up and speak to her. I do not believe that Sarah would give her kidney if it came down to it. I would be afraid to allow Sarah to live with this person for fear of the exploitation that might take place. And I just feel like, this is a scenario where Sarah was probably able to manipulate. Sarah has been behind bars for 5 years and she's fighting for her life, and she knows that, and she has to do that. And she had to also potentially line up a place to live in her world of getting out, thinking she was going to walk out of jail or prison or whatever. Again, I would be very leery about allowing Sarah to live with somebody who is describing themselves in a compromised medical condition that would be dependent upon her for care. I would not trust that situation. Zero. Absolutely. Wouldn't wish it on my enemy.
And I hope Sarah doesn't get mad at me again for disclosing this, but out of all the shock and seriousness of what had happened in the court, the thing that made her emotionally break was that she realized she could no longer be a donor to me.
Please. The judge rolled his damn eyes over that. I mean, come on. I don't have anything to say about that. I just don't even want to acknowledge it, okay? Even more so than that, let's get to the juice of it, okay? Let's get to Sarah on the stand, right? And let's just hear what she has to say for herself. She has waited 5 years to get this off her chest, or let me say this. She's waited 5 years to get this off her shoulder pads, okay? Ooh, does she have a lot to unload off those shoulder pads? Let the cameras roll.
This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. Just as gold is very precious, forgiveness is invaluable.
Anything else? Did we miss anything, Sarah? That started off over here and quickly went over here, right? When she did this, literally, y'all, you could almost hear everybody get their popcorn and lean into the TV a little bit more, however you watch it. I would like to say it got better from there. It didn't. It got worse, okay? And when you're asking yourself, well, how much worse could it get, Paul? Oh, it got really bad, okay? Really, really bad. It's like she kind of begged for the life sentence. If you wanted to see somebody get on the stand and dry beg for a life sentence, this is it, okay? Now we're gonna watch this clip here, and it's long, right? But I'm gonna cut it up as we go and kind of talk about parts of it. So let's let the camera roll.
My goal begins with George Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry.
Okay. We're coming in hot on this one. Notice at the very beginning when that noise happened and she stood up like, this is my time. Not stood up, but you know what I'm saying? She did a little something or whatever. I'm sure in the courtroom, there were probably audible gasp over that. Because I know here at the Sofa Squad, I literally fell off the sofa. Okay, mouth ajar. And y'all already, if you follow me, you know that's kind of hard to do to me, right? Let's keep going.
Every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy. I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day.
Stop. Trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough. Dad, Brian, Sarah's ex, talking about I'd have to check on her to see if she was going to actually pick the kid up from school or if she was going to pawn him off onto me. She wants to get all serious about a damn field trip. Roll my eyes hard enough. Let's keep going.
For ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television we watched together.
I believe she set him up to do that TV. I don't believe that. I don't believe that he did that. I don't think he was in a rage. I think that she concocted that somehow. A lot of the stuff that she says here is stuff we've seen evidence of that I just am very leery if it really went down that way.
For wrecking our townhome by breaking windows, punching holes in the walls and doors, ramming his entire body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over. for breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed.
Here's the thing. And I don't know how y'all feel about this, and I get that right now Sarah has, like, how do you say it, like, filled out since we saw her in the police interview and the day of the event, right? Like, she's been eating healthy and, like, not drinking and all this type. So she looks way better, right? Even that being said, you'll see where I'm going with this. When she is talking about this stuff with George, I personally think that Sarah could probably have kicked George's butt. Just looking at Sai's demeanor, and I think that she has enough rage in her to absolutely whip his butt if she wanted to, and probably did on numerous occasions. Am I discounting that he did something to her at some point? No, there's definitely evidence that he did this, okay? But to what extent, I do not know, and who was the aggressor, who knows, right? I have a feeling that a lot of things were probably him trying to defend himself, okay? Because the evidence that I saw, the video stuff like that, was she was the abuser, she was the aggressor.
For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement, for kicking them off of the bed and throwing across the room because they were trying to protect me, for threatening to make me unrecognizable to my son by breaking all of the bones in my face, like his brother Moses did to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me.
I mean, remember, his family is sitting feet in front of her. They have just gotten up there and cried and bawled and talked about this, and this is what they're hearing. Okay, this is what they're hearing. Now, again, we heard so much of this evidence come out, and so it's interesting that these are the events that she's bringing up. All this stuff that we've already heard, it's like she's trying to get her last word in. And I will have to give her this. She is being very creative in this way of, like, I forgive him for, you know, it's like, oh, she's not even sneaky, but just conniving in the way that she's done this and trying to slide in all these insults about him and getting the last word in.
Like all of the times their father beat their mother. For all of the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I had escaped. For drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the bottle in my face, giving me 2 black eyes and a bloody nose.
All the time she didn't want to drink. Here's the thing. The evidence we saw in the courtroom at the time was the night of the event where she was like, no, like, you know, we got this one, we started drinking the one bottle, the one handle, and then, you know, we ran out, so we're like, okay, let's go ahead and get more, so we had to go back out. And then, like, I didn't want to keep drinking. He took my stuff and ran over there, and I'm like, girl, you think we're going to believe that you had no inkling to keep drinking after that it was all on him? She was forced into this, but again, through the narrative of a narcissistic type person, or someone who even, like, an egomaniac, or someone who views himself as a perpetual victim in every single circumstance. Of course she's going to view it like that. Like, I didn't want to keep drinking, but I was forced to keep the peace of the house. You know, that's just, she knows how to do that with every single thing.
For making me experience what it is to be threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece. For threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job. For holding me hostage on weekends my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave.
She is very capable. All the videos we saw of her, this was a person who was running the show. We know for a fact that she possessed all of his stuff, his passports, his identification, all these kind of things, looked at them as her own possessions because she paid for them. This is not someone who's being held against her will. She could have chosen one little circumstance of something, but mark my words, from what I've seen of Sarah, if she wanted to leave the house, oh, she's gonna leave, right? And probably would have whooped his tail up one side and the next if he got in her way of doing it. Okay, so this right here to me is insane that she even comes up with this.
For stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested. For destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called. for me experiencing ever being arrested, and after today, prison.
It's even his fault. She's forgiving him for being arrested and for after today going to prison. I mean, do you see where the judge would be listening to this and thinking, she smoked? Girl ain't changing. Girl ain't changing at all, right? Now, she will continue on with this narrative, but in different, let's say she's picking different victims in the courtroom to go after.
I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was capable of and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it, than to keep turning a blind eye when I would ask for help. All of his siblings, including Pharrell Torres, who is now on his way to prison for stabbing the mother of their baby in the side of her head. For everyone who knew what George was doing to me, sometimes how and when, but allowed and enabled, I forgive them for caring too late. I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night the uneasy question, what could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them? And after all the time Sarah tried to, by asking for help, from all of us, and so many times.
I would have loved to have seen the family's faces over that. Again, zero compassion or empathy. Everything was about what's been done to her. What do you do with that? Right? You don't come back from this. Remember, this is 5 years into this, or almost whatever it is. She is still bitter as hell. I thought I was bitter. This makes me feel good about myself. Right? I'm fine. Hell, I can go off my damn meds. I'm feeling pretty damn frisky now. I mean, I didn't even look at it through this lens. I mean, my God, I guess I'm just completely happy-go-lucky up in here.
Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole, and for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning. My family law case is the new prey waiting to be picked apart and pillaged from me being made infamous by social media in my criminal case.
Who wants to put money that she threw that part about my family law case in there because she wants the attention from that too? Right, because this is me. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Thanks, Sarah. You know what I'm saying? And none of it paints her to be a decent person. Remember, no one came to speak for her from her past. Only people through her current situation in jail. Just let that sink in.
It simply seems I cannot forgive and be forgiven and move forward. Social media has made me a pariah. It has caused great oppression and undeniable disadvantages, especially by broadcasting and manipulating my cases online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced, successful conclusion was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them. Also, all of the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, trying so desperately to make themselves seem so right by making me appear so wrong.
That ain't me. I ain't no tycoon. She's talking about them over at Court TV. She's talking about them over at Long Crime. She's talking about them fancy people. I mean, what do you say to this, right? She is bitter, but again, she seems to gloat in the attention. If she didn't truly like it or garner it or like play with it, like with the media and the people like that, I might believe her a little bit, but I think she really enjoys the attention.
Almost everything reminds me of him, seeing my stab wound every day especially. It truly reminds me that all I really did live through. George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most.
Okay. So my degree is in creative writing, English, that kind of stuff. It almost feels like this is like a fictionalized piece that she's going to workshop. Like that whole thing right there, like I think about him when I look at my stab wound, I'm like, so dramatic, right? And she'll bring the stab wound up numerous. I don't know if I'll pull more clips of it. She'll bring the stab wound up so many times. She's very big on that. Now the evidence from the stab wound, she's up in the hospital. happy as just so excited to be there, right? Loving that attention. But again, the tricky thing with people like Sarah that seem to enjoy being a victim, being a martyr, is that's the thing, because they enjoy that, they have to seek out situations to be victimized by. Now, this is where it gets blurry, because there are real situations out there of people who are in domestic situations where they are in danger and they are afraid to leave. I don't believe that was the case here. It could have been for George. George was probably in danger. Well, obviously, right? He was in danger. I mean, we saw how it ended. But Sarah has adopted that for herself. This whole thing of the family knew and all this stuff. I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? We see the way she talked to the mother. We see the text messages of, you need to get help, Sarah. She had them in her clutches.
In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional. I hope everyone can, his family foremost.
That word that we have to be forced to listen to every time we think of Sarah Boone. And do you know how many times I end up using that not intentional? You would never think about that. Do you know how many times I end up saying caveat? Okay. It's crazy. It's which came first? Did I say them because I now know about them, or have I always said that, but I was just unaware of it until I met the likes of Sarah and Nancy Bravery? I don't know. Let's keep going.
I didn't mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me.
She had to throw a planet in there. Remember, she's intergalactic fame, okay? She's so dramatic. And the way she speaks, to the Torres family, I forgive you. She kind of throws in a little bit. It's her accent, she has an accent by trying not to. And I don't know where this comes from, because I don't think she really talks like this. But when she's trying to be serious and dramatic, she talks a certain way. And honestly, it's triggering to me. It's like an emotionless robot.
I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me, please, to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off of my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long, for second chances, repentance, and redemption, to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, and still hope, always, to make their voices heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and the inside, to help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late. There is always hope, and you can survive. In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this: would I be the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died? How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did? I am a survivor.
Again, she comes at it from a perspective that she's the victim. She's aligning herself. Now, one thing she's doing is she's aligning herself with somebody who, there's going to be particular people who will view Sarah's situation, no questions asked, going to believe everything she says, because she said this, bam, believe her, doesn't matter. Don't want evidence, anything, right? And it's not to knock that, but to me, I'm she's doing a disservice to true survivors, okay? Because she's trying to align herself with that for sympathy and victimization. The evidence seems to point that George was a victim of Sarah's. And, in many ways, they were probably victims of each other. They were definitely two people that didn't need to be together. Period. End of story. The shameful part's obviously what she did to George, right? And then what she just did to the family and the courtroom. Shameful part, in addition to all of this, is her trying to ride the coattails of real victims and align herself with this. And the ways that she's getting all up here. Would I be the one, the celebrated mother, if I had died? That is nothing. This is nothing but for attention for herself. She does not come off like a true victim. And I'm not trying to say there's a level of normalcy or anything like that, but you can smell BS when you can smell BS, okay? And she's just doubling down on this whole mentality that she is the victim. And that's why she is going to rot in prison. It's why George is dead. She's out of touch with reality to that degree. She is so caught up on the world is against her. she doesn't see clearly.
The court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial, the victim impact statements presented here today, the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. The court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, the court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served that Madam Clerk will provide to you momentarily. There are also court costs and costs of prosecution, which Madam Clerk will give you the totals of momentarily. Due to the court levying a life sentence, the court is inclined to liquidate those to a civil judgment unless I hear opposition from the state.
Well, now, for one, if you followed me, I was like, oh, she's going to get 30, she's going to get 35 years. You know, this is a very fair judge. He's not going to do this, he's not going to do that, So when he said life, I was like, excuse me? Huh? It's very appropriate, especially after what we just saw. Now, I personally think he went into the courtroom knowing what he was going to give her. Right? He already knew what he was going to give her. It was a done deal. This is what it's going to be, okay? She practically begged for it on the stand. I almost think that she wanted it. You know, she wanted to be in there. It's like it was so important to her to get the last word in and to smear his name that she got up there and did all that. And it was like, honey, this is not going to help. No. This isn't going to help you. Right? Now, she might be also sitting here trying to find people to further manipulate and get into her realm or whatever, okay, moving forward. And I fear for people that she would continue to victimize. You know, when you hear of people speaking up for, and again, great for you that you've done that, but it makes me nervous when they seem to be vulnerable people talking about, I have health issues, I have this, for someone like Sarah Boone to ever have the chance to exploit them, because I think that exploitation is at the center of this case, and I don't think George was exploiting her. The videos that I saw, the evidence that I saw, this was an absolute train wreck waiting to happen. And I think that everybody around them saw that. And there's only so much you can do, right? And I think that she had her claws in George. I think she had her claws in the family. You know, her ex said in the interviews that she was an aggressor. And this is what she comes off as. Like I said, I think Sarah could have beat George up. I don't believe for 1 second that he was holding her against her will in any way, shape, or form. I think it was quite the opposite. You know, it's a tragic case study, but it's an interesting case study. And watching someone so disconnected and so convinced that they are the victim that they're not willing to even let go of that for 1 second. Now, obviously, there's the logistics of it. You're in court. You're fighting for your life. Of course, you're not going to get up there and say, yeah, I did it. You know, I get that, okay? You know, and I get you're going to want to get up there and say something to the court, but literally nothing. This was her scathing and spitting at the victim and his family. There was no remorse, no sadness, no apology, nothing. This was a rant. Her last words, and it was more important to her to get these scathing words in than to ever have any level of compassion for the family. Absolutely blows my mind. So I am curious what you think. I wanted to go a little bit more in depth in this video. I know a lot of you had asked me like talk about different varieties, parts of it, whatever. So I'll put out the most important parts of the clip, but I do urge you, if you haven't watched this, to go watch the whole thing. We watched it on Law and Crime, so you can check it out there. So that being said, let me know, were you surprised about the life sentence? Were you happy about the life sentence? You know, what did you think about what she said to the parents or the mother, to the sister, to the daughter about George, the whole 9 yards? I want to know. Anyways, thank you very much. Drop some comments off in the comment section, along with some little sofas for myself, Rosco and Spirit, as well as the boys who are sleeping kindly next to me. So I'll have a place to hang out in the comment section with you and talk about this case and all the other ones we do talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until we meander our way down there to do that, I'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.